What's going on, everyone? My name is Brent Schirmer. I run the Sea Dude YouTube channel, and I'm here to teach you guys a couple tips on how to catch kingfish using live bait. I'm going to break this video down into 3 parts: where you're going to find your bait, where you're going to find the kingfish, and the rigs and tackle that I like to use to target these kingfish. So the first part, where you're going to find your bait. So my favorite bait to use when I'm targeting kingfish is either really big thread fins or pilchards. I'm talking like anything between 7 and maybe even like 10, 11 inches long, or some blue runners. If you can find some blue runners, that seems to be the go-to bait for a lot of these bigger kingfish. If you're trying to catch the bigger thread fins and the pilchards, you could either try and find them on maybe like a dock or maybe on like a deeper bridge pilings, throw a cast net that way. Or my go-to way is I like to have a sabiki rig rigged up, and I'll look for these schools of bait either off the beach or out at the wrecks where I'm actually going to be targeting these kingfish, because these kingfish are following these schools of bait this time of year. So a lot of times you'll run out to the spots and there'll already be bait out there. So if you have a sabiki rig tied up, you can quickly load up on the perfect size baits on what those kingfish in that area are really targeting. So the second part, where are you going to find these kingfish? So really here I'm going to be talking specifically in the Tampa Bay area on the west coast of Florida. We kind of have a seasonal kingfish bite. Yes, you can go out and get a kingfish year round, but the vast majority of the population that we see caught is in the fall and the spring. The rule of thumb is right when that water temperature gets around 75, 70 degrees is really when you're going to see these kingfish, because you also see these massive schools of bait offshore, and these kingfish are really targeting picking off these schools of thread fins that are out there. So that's a big tip if you're running out. A lot of times what I plan to do is I'll have either a wreck or artificial reef or a number that I already have planned, run out to there, and if I can find a school of bait on an area that also has structure, there's gonna be kingfish and maybe some big Spanish tied in with them. So the third and final part I want to talk about is my favorite rigs when I'm catching these kingfish. And I want to be prepared for whatever size kingfish hits, whether it's 24 inches to the fork, just barely legal, or if it's all the way up to 45, 50 pounds. I want to make sure that I'm ready to catch that fish. So I like using a little bit bigger setups. This is my 13 Fishing 6.0 AL13 reel. I got 40-pound braid on there. I have a lot of line, and that's key when you're going for kingfish, because you cannot use too heavy of drag going for kingfish. They have pretty soft mouths, so you have to have pretty loose drag. Obviously you got to kind of play it by how big the kingfish is, but you don't want to pull that hook out, so you got to make sure you have a lot of line capacity on your reel, because they will peel it off. I have that paired up on my 13 Fishing Fate S rod. This is an 8-foot extra heavy rod. Also, if you're in an area and you're pretty confident you're not going to get a king over like 25, 30 pounds, you can bump down to like a 4 or 5K reel, but I like using these heavier setups. Something that's key that I really think helps me get a lot more bites this year, I just started doing this, is I add a long section of leader before I get down to my stinger rig, which I'll talk about in a second. But I like to add about a 10, 12-foot section of 30-pound Seaguar fluorocarbon leader. I think kingfish are very line sensitive. I've seen them come up to a bait and either they see the wire or they see your braid or something, and they'll just spook off. So the longer section of leader definitely helps with that, and the lighter section, like 30 pounds, is perfect for that application. And then at the end of my leader, I have a swivel right here. I try to use the smallest swivels that I can find. If you can find one around like 30-pound capacity, that's really good. Down to a section of wire right here. This is 38-pound tooth-proof wire. This is my favorite size, favorite for the kingfish. Seems to work great. It's light enough, but also strong enough at the same time that they don't get spooked by it. I like to have about a 6 to 8 inch section of that with a sliding stinger rig. So what that means is I have my front hook, which is a VMC live bait hook right here. I don't have it really tied up to anything. I just have the leader or the wire going straight through the eye of the hook down to a VMC treble hook at the bottom, and that allows me to have a variety of sizes of baits without having to adjust my stinger rig every time. You use this front live bait hook, you put right into the nose of your bait, and then this back treble hook you like to put somewhere on the back half of the fish. I prefer up top behind the dorsal fin of the fish. And the reason you do that is kingfish, what they do, they hit a bait really hard, really fast, and they usually aim for the middle or the tail of the bait, and then they'll knock that tail off. They're able to cut that tail off clean, and then they'll come back around and pick up the other half of the fish while it can't swim away. So if you have a hook that's back there by the tail, a lot of times that's the hook that ends up getting them. So those are the tips and tricks that I've been personally using here the last couple of weeks to catch these kingfish. I hope you guys learned something. I hope you guys are able to combine all those tips together and go out and get yourself some kingfish, make yourself some fish dip. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.